everyone to Michael Tricot. Michael's been working in data engineering for the past 15 years. More recently, as a head of integrations and director of engineering at LiveRamp, he's grown the team responsible for scaling data ingestion and data distribution connectors, syncing over hundreds of terabytes of data every single day. In 2020, he co-founded Airbyte, a new open source data integration platform with the vision to commoditize data integration pipelines across all industries and organizations. After just 5 months, Airbyte raised $5.2 million from Excel and also Y Combinator. And 2 months later, Airbyte raised additional $26 million from Benchmark, following a massive adoption from users and contributors. So Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So hi, everyone. Unfortunately, I cannot see you today, but I know it's going to be a very interesting talk. So today I want to talk with you about the modern data stack and how data teams are actually evolving the way they approach data and how they are making data available within the organization. And this has become an important element in the data world because, as you've seen over the past 5 years, we had a lot of new technologies coming up, especially in the data warehousing space. We have BigQuery that has become extremely popular, it's Snowflake, Redshift. And this way of processing data and the simplicity of it has opened new type of roles to actually have access to this data and to do something and extract insight and information from that data. And from there, the data teams have to invent themselves to enable these new roles. And before we dive into the topic, so yeah, as it was said before, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Airbyte. We're an open source data integration platform. And our goal is to allow every one of our users to move data from any kind of silos to any destination. And a silo can be an API, can be a file, can be a database. And destination can be basically anything. Today, we have a lot of focus on data warehouses and data lakes, but we're starting to see people wanting to sync and replicate data within other services like other APIs. And today we support over 120 high quality connector out of the box. And we have a very lively community of almost 3,000 users. I was hoping we would get there by today. And we've been used by over 5,000 different companies. So what we've seen over the past few years is a shift in how people think of data. And if you look at the history, there's been a common pattern that every single data teams have been using. And that goes back 30, 40 years ago, where we were always thinking of extract, transform, and load. And what is extract is basically all these little pieces of connectors that are going to pull data from a system. Then while they're extracting it, they're going to start transforming it, and they're going to apply all the business logic into the data, and then they're going to load it into whatever, whether it's a database or any kind of system where you will be able to do dashboarding, etc. And this has been the dominant paradigm around how teams process data. And the reason is that storage was expensive, compute was expensive, memory was expensive, but all of that has changed tremendously over the past few years with all the cloud offering and all the modern data warehouse. The problem with ETL is that it is extremely inflexible. So first of all, every time you need to change your analysis or change the business logic, you basically need to re-import the whole data because the data is not there anymore. You only have a byproduct of your data. It is very hard to add new data because if you want to add an extra field that you might have forgotten during your initial analysis, same thing, you need to re-import the whole data. And the problem with that is these transformation steps are very technical. So it means that it is generally the responsibility of data engineers. It is normally the responsibility of engineers to actually maintain this pipeline. And that means that suddenly you have a big bottleneck on these teams, and that is not efficient, especially if your organization is really moving forward to adopting extremely data-driven decision and relying on very deep and precise analysis. And yeah, it's also very complex because E, T, and L are so coupled that in general, what you need to do is you need to buy an end-to-end solution that will do everything from extract to transform to load. And these solutions are not silver bullet. They are going to address maybe 60, 70% of your use case. And the day you go a little bit outside of how they've been thought about, then you will need to do your own data pipeline internally. So you will have to rebuild a similar system to the one you're already buying. And you can see that across many, many teams. I'm pretty sure that if you're thinking about what you're maintaining internally today, you will see, oh yes, I'm buying this solution, but I'm also building something on the side. And what we've seen as a result of that is data teams have shifted, especially with storage becoming cheaper and cheaper, where you start by only focusing on extract and load. And extract and load is very agnostic of your industry. It's very agnostic of your use case. It's really about how do I break down silos and how do I bring the data the closest as possible to the people who will be able to use it. And then once you've extracted and loaded the data where it can be leveraged by your teams, then you can have an army of data engineers, an army of data scientists that can start applying transformation with full knowledge of what the data is. There is no bias that has been applied to the data. So if they want to dig deeper, they will be able to without having to re-import data. And so that basically ELT gives you a lot of flexibility on how you approach data, because not only do you not apply a bias, but you stay very close to how the source is thinking about the data, which is generally important if you want to do your analysis. You want to do it in the context of where the data was. It also means that now, because transformation is only at the end, anyone can create their own transformation if they need to. And by transformation, it's like a global term to really talk about analysis or operational use cases and where you apply and inject all your logic. It gives a lot of autonomy because everybody today knows how, everybody knows how to write SQL, and there is a lot of tooling that is being of that. So it means that you can start into a subset of the data space, which is SQL or like DBT or other type of technologies like that. And you don't need to have you can grow these teams and have them like really focus on the insights extraction. And it's future proof, because what would happen before with ETL is if you have a bug in one of your transformation, then your whole data is corrupted. And every analysis that might be extracted from it is broken. Whereas here, because you have the raw data always accessible, if it's one pipeline that is broken, that's fine. You can always have your other pipelines not broken and until the other one gets fixed. So that is what we've been seeing. And the modern data stack is basically what is going to be it's more like a way of thinking about your data pipeline and your data value chain. So here I'm going to talk about how you can actually compose your data stack with the best of breed to really tackle the use case of your organization. So when you think of data within your companies or within or where you work or with your customers, every single company has different needs. They have different types of data, different skills available, different scale of data. Some have like a few gigs, some have a few terabytes. They have different budgets, security requirements, privacy requirements. If you're in fintech or insurance tech, you might have like regulation on top of that, and different turnaround. Some people need data within the next 10 minutes. Some need that in the next hour or the next day. So every need is different. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these organizations are actually moving away from this end-to-end solution to actually compose their own solution. And what we see here is some examples of how companies can actually shop around and decide what are the building blocks that are the most adapted to my need. And for example, for extract and load, which is about how do I get access to the data, you have the choice between Airbyte, Fivetran, and a few other companies. For data warehousing, you obviously have the choice. And then you have quality. Do you need quality? Do you not need quality? And then you have like transformation, visualization. Visualization, you might want to use Looker, superset, but it's basically just the composition of a lot of best of breed building blocks. And once you have selected your building block, you just need to assemble together to create this value chain from the beginning where you get access to the data to the end where you actually activate the data. And we've seen a lot of these technology like Airflow, Preset, Daxter have a lot of being very popular because they actually enable people and they become the backbone of your data stack. So now I want to run you through an example where we're going to show how Airbyte, dbt, and Airflow can actually be assembled to get you the best of the data stack and also the most extensible, because the needs that you have today might not be the same tomorrow. So you need to be able to inject this additional module within your data stack. So Airbyte, as I mentioned, we are an open source data integration platform, 120 high quality connectors. The thing that makes Airbyte extremely powerful is our connector development kit, meaning that if you have very, very specific data sources within your infrastructure, or you're using a very exotic service and that the connector is not supported, then here you have access to like tooling and libraries to help you very, very quickly integrate with that service. And it's going to be very minimal. And after that, once it's created, you can start pushing it into the Airbyte platform, and you will get access to all the monitoring, logging, scheduling, etc. that comes with Airbyte. So you won't have to think about how do I actually operate that new connector that I just created. And so, yes, as I say, we're open source and we have a very active Slack community, very funny mascot, as you can see along the slides. And yeah, so how does Airbyte work? The first thing is, it is cloud agnostic, and it is based on what we call a data exchange protocol, which is a set of rules that we've encoded that tell people and tell connectors how do you move data from point A to point B. And on top of that protocol, we've been adding layers of abstraction so that you can build sources and destinations very quickly. And this is something where we have a lot of contributors today helping us on the building, but most importantly, the maintenance of these connectors. And on top of that, you have access to scheduler, config and state management, monitoring, and APIs to actually control the whole system. Now, we talked about extract and load. That's what Airbyte does. And now let's focus on what the transformation is. So dbt, you've probably all heard of dbt. It's also an open source application. And what it does, it really simplifies how data data scientists actually think about data model, data transformation, and extract insight from data. And what has changed with dbt is that it has brought all the good practices of software engineering from that have been known for the past 10, 20 years within software engineering into the analytics space. So you have version control, testing, and packaging, which is extremely important as you're building your data stack. It supports most databases and data warehouses, and we're very deeply integrated with dbt to ensure that once we're done ingesting the data, whether it's like incremental load or full refreshes, we can actually kick off and let dbt do the transformation after that. And of course, we have Airflow. I don't know how necessary it is to introduce Airflow, but it's also an open source software. And it is a workflow manager. Same thing, it allows people to control their configuration with code, and you can create DAG to actually sequence operations in order to get to your final results. And in the end, this is what like a very early version of a data stack looks like. On the left side of the data warehouse, you have everything that is about extracting and loading the data. Because yes, you buy your brand new and shiny data warehouse, you need to get data into it. And Airbyte is there to help you. And you can basically pull data from any type of sources, as long as the connector works with the rules that we've defined in our protocol. And then with Airflow, you can sequence that with Airflow. Airflow is going to kick off like all the Airbyte replication jobs. And it is also going to kick off all the DBT transformation or all the DBT operation that you want to apply on the data once it's been loaded. And after that, you can start getting your data teams to, or like your analysts to decide on what kind of dashboard they want to provide, what kind of analysis they want to provide. And they can work directly either with DBT or through some BI tools. Another use case that is interesting when we're talking about data integration is what happens on the right side also of the warehouse, which the industry call that reverse ETL. I'm a little bit doubtful about that name, but well, everybody understands it this way. So let's talk about it, which is you've taken all this fragmented data and you've centralized it into a warehouse. And by joining all this data together, you can have actually access to better insight, better data, because everything is merged together. So you have the full view, for example, of your customer. And what you can do at that point is you might want to segment them using extremely precise information. But once you've segmented them into your warehouse, what do you do with these segments? And that's where like what we call the activation becomes extremely important. It is now that I've done all this joint analysis with all this joint data set, how do we actually push the results of this analysis into tools where I will be able to leverage them, whether it's a marketing tool, whether it's a sales tool, whether it's like any tool that you can think of. And that is something that we are seeing more and more companies doing. They used to do it internally within their data teams, but we're starting to see more and more product coming into that space. So I want to show you a very quick demo of what it looks like to create integration and data pipelines with Airbyte. So here I have a demo, and actually you can go there. It's available on our website. And let's create a new source. And here, so we do a lot of analytics on our own community using GitHub, Slack, etc. So I'm going to connect GitHub. And one thing that is important when you think about the modern data stack is how you can enable new roles. It should be about providing a platform for the rest of your organization. And this is why we're putting a lot of effort into the UI, although we also have an API. It's to make sure that data teams can start enabling new roles to be extremely good with data and provide the best insights. So. There we go. I'm just providing the necessary credential. And you can see very straightforward. And now I'm setting up my source. And what I can do now that I've created my source is actually connected to an external destination. So here I have a few that are already configured. Let's do BigQuery. So it's going to validate that the data pipelines can actually work, that I have the right permission, that I have the right credentials. And here what you can see is the control center of how this connection happened. And we try to, like, Airbyte is really about extract and load. So we stay away from any kind of transformation. And what the connector is going to expose to us is how do you actually, what kind of data models are actually available on that platform. And from there, you can select which data you want to replicate within your warehouse. And you can select the frequency at which you want to replicate that. And you have a few options like that. So now if you look at an actual connection, this one fell. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that is what it looks like. Not a lot of difference over there, and that gets you access to a lot of logs, so that if you have any issue, you can start debugging, you can start resetting your data. And over there, you can see that we have this list of all the available connectors. But if you want to add your own, connectors are extremely well packaged into Docker images, so they come with their own environment, and you can start, just as long as you have the image available, you can just plug it into the platform and it will be available through the UI. And once it's available through the UI, it means it's available to your team, and they can decide how and when they want to replicate there. So yeah, that is about it. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. And if you have any question, you can join our Slack. We have a public Slack that is available for our community. That's also where you can see the whole team. And yeah, and this is the repo, and it shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes to get up and running with Airbyte.
Awesome. Thanks,
so,
Michael. I'll open it up to the, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
to the room for questions. And you have virtual.
Yeah, so I see one question about how Airbyte compares to Fivetran. That's a very good question. So the first thing is Airbyte is fully open source. It means that if you have a missing, like Fivetran supports maybe 150 different connectors, and they've been opinionated about what they put into these connectors. So what kind of records they can extract, what kind of fields. And when you think of Airbyte, it's really about the flexibility and the customizability of the system. So we offer out-of-the-box connector, but if they don't match exactly what you need, or if maybe we're missing a stream of data, you can always add it. You don't have to wait for support or anything. And if you have a missing connector, then you can build your own connector, and you don't need to rebuild your own, like a system on the side to manage this new customized connector. And also it runs on your own infrastructure, because that was one of the reasons that, one of the important items, which is with data regulation, you have a lot of companies that are more worried about getting the data through a third-party vendor. And at that point, what they want is they rebuild these data pipelines internally to avoid having to exfiltrate the data to a third party.
Got it. Random question on my end. What's the story behind the octopus for the mascot?
So the octopus is a very smart animal, and it has links to everything. So we're trying to see Airbyte as the thinking head that connects to all your data sources. And also it's a cute animal, let's be honest.
Valid point. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Anyone else with any questions? On that note, we have about a couple minutes to the next presentation, so we'll be around till then.
Thank you, everyone.